Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Today I want to take you to the Kingdom of Britain. I want to take you there because this could well be a vision that you share for the future of this country, or indeed whatever country you happen to be in. The ideas contained within the interview from the lovely lady I'm going to speak to now. She is a visionary, she is a consultant, a holistic coach, an empower, and a woman of many talents, she tells me. And she goes under the name of Shebear. Shebear, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. It's lovely to be on here.
It's lovely to have you on with me, and we're going to explore the Kingdom of Britain, which sounds, well, I suppose depends how you think of Britain, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I guess. However, before we get on to that, because you have this curious name, and you're not, Mrs. Jean Smith from 32 Acacia Avenue, although for all I know you might be, She-Bear, where does that come from?
It's my spiritual name. It comes from me having to look after my cubs when times got rough. And a lot of people I interact with now all over the world, they say you have a very motherly energy. So I am the female bear who is firm but can be ferocious.
Right. Well, let's hope that you don't get ferocious with me today. I would like to see the lovely cuddly bear.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Fantastic. And yes, you look nice and warm with your fleece on there. So, a Kingdom of Britain. We are in Britain. It is a sort of kingdom. What we have at the moment, I think a lot of people are beginning to now become more aware as they realise that things aren't quite right. We've gone through a severe amount of interference from the government, and it seems to have been ramped up. Some would argue that the government really have got nothing to do with the Kingdom of Britain in and of itself anyway, because the way they're governing is not in people's favour. So perhaps you could tell us, because you have a website, thekingdomofbritain.co.uk. I'll leave the link in the description. So maybe you could take us on the journey then and tell us about it, how it came about, and the visionary status that you have.
Okay, so the Kingdom of Britain, quite a few people are triggered by the fact we're using kingdom.
Right.
We are all sovereign men and women. We are kings and queens of our own domain, and that's what we need to bring in. People need to have free will and free choice and run their own affairs without being taxed to the hilt, without being having any silly regulations, and just left to get on our with our lives in peace and prosperity.
So do you think that, and I've mentioned this before, and I actually interviewed a chap called Steve who was Polish, and during the Berlin Wall coming down, he said there was a point when the government collapsed and everybody basically had to get on with it. He said effectively it was the old original version of anarchy, self-rule, and people just got on. He said actually it was the best time because people, instead of rioting and murdering and raping and pillaging, they all found that actually it was so much easier to get on and help and cooperate and pull together. And when the government saw that, managed to sort of claw theirself back into power, everything went downhill again. So is that what you're sort of talking about? This sort of sense that we would be empowered to run our own lives according to our own whims,
Yeah.
apart from obviously not doing harm to anybody else?
Yes, we have. It's basically aimed at communities. It's a series of templates. So we have the natural law decrees, which can be tailored. We have, the decentralized project-based governance. And obviously, we'll go over these a bit later. So yeah, it gives communities the template to actually, when all the bricks fall, we need to say to people, don't worry,
Hmm.
we've got a template. And we also need to give them free will, free choice, because there are many of these templates around. There's sort of like the one small town and what's it, love wins and so on. So as we, not everything suits everybody. Not all the other templates will suit all the communities. So we're just like a mama bear. I'm leaving the options open to the communities to come and speak to our team if they want to bring this in for their, for their future world.
Presumably, there's a lot of crossover between so many of these. What would you say? The sovereign people templates or ideas, concepts that people have launched, or little groups and communities. And I mean, ultimately, we don't want to be living under a top-down tyranny, dictatorship, and it sounds again like you're talking about grassroots. So presumably, there's a lot of crossover principles, ideas, visions that we all share, really, that just comes from sheer humanity, I would have thought.
Exactly. There are a lot of templates, if I can call them, out there. Um, but it's sort of like communities need choice. I'd like to
Mm.
keep mine simple. We have decrees that everything is run along if, if they choose to. Um, and they can be tailored. They're based on common sense and do no harm to man, woman, child, the environment, and flora and fauna. Um, we it's people, the right people will come to us. So as you sort of say about resonance,
Mm.
I may watch one of your programs and think, oh, I don't quite resonate with that person. And then some people may watch this with me here and say, oh, yeah, I quite like her. She's warm and fuzzy and very approachable, and so on. So we need to, provide many sweeties in the sweetie shop, as it were. Uh,
Yes.
and it's up to the individuals in the community to build their team and then pick and choose how it can run for them. We've sort of got people in Africa um, and African countries who are looking at this. But obviously, the decrees, some of it will need to be tailored to their culture and their environment. Um, but in general, I've written, or the decrees have sort of been delivered to me, shall I say. So they're common sense, very easy to read, a little bit of technical words in there, but most people say, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." For example, I travel up and down the country quite a bit with my little dog. I would like more provisions for stopping at a rest stop, and some nice grass for my dog to use rather than have it use in the corner of the buildings.
Yes. All that tarmac and concrete when you stop at service stations or whatever.
Mm.
Uh, um, yes. No, I have actually done that with somebody else's dog, and then I was going, oh, there is this service station here. I think it was at Churchwell or somewhere on the M40, and there is a sort of field at the back, and you can walk around the field, which is very nice. But then you're sort of going, yes, but that's a 2 hour journey from where I'm going, and the poor dog's got to wait for 2 hours in order to get there. So I absolutely get that. Um, so, how do you envisage, this coming about? Because I've interviewed lots of people, as you will know, and many of them, like you mentioned, Michael Tellinger's One Small Town, and there's a sort of huge commitment from people as if to go right. Okay, we're going to do this, and getting people on in significant numbers to achieve that seems to be at this stage where we are a problem when you've still got the might of government doing its legislation and sending its enforcement officers banging on your door as they did today, actually, as I record this, trying to collect more money for no apparent reason, where there's no crime and no victim. But anyway, enough of that. How do you get the momentum to actually achieve this?
I think the main thing is getting it out there, like making sure people know there is an alternative. There's a few alternatives around. Um, I think it would just naturally, things will happen. and it will just naturally ease into, perhaps not ease, it might not be, people are going to be challenged and they're going to want to look for an alternative solution. And it's up to sort of the leaders of the small groups or the communities to sort of say, yeah, we like that option. So, no one knows, only God knows how it's going to all happen. We
Right.
know it is going to happen. We don't know when. If we all had a magic crystal ball, that would be lovely, but
Yes.
not at the
Well,
moment.
not at the moment. No, we must all go out and buy one. Then we would all know. Um, so you're not a political party. You're not trying to sort of get into government. I interviewed a lady the other day from the Freedom Alliance, and they were trying to get into the old system. I mean, and this is where I find it difficult because it seems to me the old system is broken. It's not going to work. That a complete new system of living, let's say, is what we need. Not a bunch of people who tell us how to live and have written a code of conduct that if we don't, they'll come and bang on the door and collect money. So, do you have representatives of the Kingdom of England dotted around that people can go and listen to and start to build that community?
We're sort of getting there. We've split the United Kingdom and Ireland and Northern Ireland and all the Channel Islands. We've got about 10 areas, and we have a team that are in there. And yes, and it's just a case of getting out there. As I tumbled upon your videos and found you, they would just come to people. We're going to go into a world where everything just flows lovely. Um,
Well,
you
that sounds
know,
very encouraging.
Exactly. Well, again, it's a state of mind. If you, my leaflet, it says, what we focus on, we attract. So if
Right,
we want to focus on having political parties, and I want to go back to that actually, because, we only have a government if we have all consented to being governed,
right.
and we haven't.
And we haven't.
No. So
No.
a lot of these, there's the Baron Ward affidavit, and
Oh, yes.
a lot of these things where people are, in terror and so on because they have the door knockers coming round. Yeah, there's no need to fear. You haven't, the public have not consented to being governed. So if there's no governed, there's no government.
Right. I know. And that makes perfect sense to me. And I often say, a dictator without followers is a clown, which is a quote from somewhere, but I got it from Fergus Greenwood's book, 180 Degrees, which is a right ripping read if you fancy it. But I think the principle is true that we can just turn our backs. And that was one of the things that I sort of came up with the concept of Biggleswick, which
Yeah.
is just my ideal town. It resonated with a lot of people because it seemed to be a very nice, inclusive place without too much interference by. You need some sort of hierarchy, don't you, to keep something going. I think that would be worth talking about because people often think, well, how do you administer or how do you run the services that we actually want and that we can't all do ourselves?
Well, I see that there will be a small team that steps forward, depending on the community, and then it's up to the members of the community if they want those people to serve them. Um, I see that we're going to be having more technology. Okay, lots of people are sort of like worried about new technology, but what if this technology can be used to make things transparent? So instead of having a lovely glossy leaflet and the council say where your money's going, they can actually look at the profit and loss and the balance sheet, the actual accounts, and they can, it may be we have a village hall with a board up, and someone says, oh, I have a good idea for this, so we can put it up and we can discuss it in meetings and so on. And you know everybody's role is going to change. I don't see that we will have jobs per se. So for me, my work is my play and my play is my work. So if everyone can be in that situation where they're doing a job that they're really passionate about, and if they're passionate about bringing their community forward, whether it's to do with schools, whether it's to do with, the nature and so on, then, people will see that are the right people for the job. And again, above all is transparency and accountability.
You said just now that people are frightened of technology, and I have to say I am nervous of the digital world, mostly because the majority of my life has been in the analog world, and there is something visceral about, say, picking up a book, for example, and having something that you can actually open and flick through the pages, and it's there, and certain mechanical things that you can see how they work. When you sort of step into the digital world and you've got phones and things like that, you can't see how it works, and you can't see, and I think people are worried about the snooping, the data harvesting, the technology that can be taking your biometrics, the evil purposes, let's say, of technology, which seem to have been harder. I'm not saying it didn't happen, of course, in the analog world, but it just seems so much easier in the digital world. What is your vision for a digital future?
I'm a techie person, but I think we need a backup. If electricity goes, if the internet cables go, we're snookers. So
Yes.
we need a backup. So, for example, yes, we could have perhaps some people do like their gadgets, so they could have the project maintenance app on their phone and so on, so they can see what's going on. There may be Gladys down the road. She's very interested in getting involved with this, but she's not technologically based. So
Right.
we need to, just as these templates are a variety, and there's a variety for different people, we go along with what is best for the individuals out there. I see that, yes, we have a big like community hall within a community, and people that aren't computer savvy will be able to get their information. They go along, bring their knitting, and have a cuppa and so on, and
Yes.
put the world to rights. And we need to use that experience that these more mature people have within the community and within the governance of the community.
When you say you were talking about work and work being your vocation or your vocation being work, of course, and I absolutely get that. I mean, I wouldn't want to sit under fluorescent lights selling life insurance or being on one of these phone lines listening to an irate person who hasn't had their electricity or they've been overcharged or whatever it is, and can absolutely think, well, I don't want to do that for a living, 8 hours a day sitting in artificial light, particularly when it's nice and sunny outside. However, it strikes me that we do have manufacturing jobs which perhaps are a bit dull and a bit boring, that people don't necessarily want to do but find that they have to do at the moment. And even if they could all not do it, would we not have some of the products? I mean, we get so many stuff that's unnecessary in life. I would certainly agree with that. But would we not get enough of this stuff? I mean, you're sitting on a comfortable chair that had to be manufactured, presumably mostly in a factory. I mean, so am I. And all the computer stuff that I've got around me and the cameras, I couldn't actually make these by hand. So how would you address some jobs being required by people actually integrating and doing it, and others who are saying, well, I'm just going to sit at home and play with the children or whatever?
Yes, that's an interesting one. Well, a lot of these things are highly manufactured. Um, and there will be a place for computerization and robots within that. So then the individual can go and, perhaps work part-time if they want. And then perhaps they could work on their community team. or they could go in the allotments and so on. I think, again, because of the natural law decrees are saying do no harm, we've got to make sure that any processes of any kind do no harm to the people working in them. There's no harmful chemicals and so on. And it may be that we need to get back to basics, good old wood and a
Yes.
bit of fabric and a bit of sheep wool. And, there may be people that would love to get work with their hands, love to do a bit of carpentry and so on, but they've been like shoved into this office because that's what's dictated. So I imagine there will be sort of some kind of empowerment or learning centers. So if people do want to change their career, and they want to do something they're passionate about, or even try something that they're passionate about, that's an option.
Yes. I mean, I'm supposing that what the world that we live in, which is highly commercial, to the point that we're raping the raw resources and we're not thinking about what we do with those once we've built whatever it is, a chair or a computer, or in fact a wind turbine, that when it comes to the end of its use, we don't know what we're going to do. It just ends up in landfill, which is not great. And maybe we should be designing things in the future that we've already thought about its end of life and its more natural environmental end of life, rather than going, oh, this is great, we can have them in the, creating electricity on wind power, but when it's dead 20 years down the line, we won't bother with that. We'll just sort of hide it somewhere and no one will know. Well, we are beginning to know just how the cost of that is as it leaches into the water table, for example. So I'm assuming that part of your vision then is it is actually, as you say, getting back to basics, is eliminating a lot of those problems.
Yes, and also there are about 6,000 patents that have been quashed. And some of these patents have machines that will create electricity for you. They replicate things for you and so on. So well, I'm just can't wait to learn about all the new things that are going to come out. And it's going to be very challenging for some people because yes, they don't trust and so on. But I think we're being dragged, a lot of us are being dragged kicking and screaming to have that perspective of trust and
Yeah.
surrender and just let it flow. Today was an amazing example. I was very poorly this morning, and then I thought, oh, I've got to go with my dad to the dentist, and so on. And it all flowed. Was meant to be there for two. We was actually out on the way home by two. So, and then we come to a stage where, yes, things will be, as long as we have the right mindset, um, things will flow nicely for people. But also, we do need to have experiences that are not quite positive because we need to learn from them. We need
Yes.
to wake up and see and actually find us and think, do I believe that? Oh, that's a bit, that doesn't sit well with me. So
So
yes,
I mean, you're referring there to a lot of people who are, shall we say, enlightened and already thinking of all the stuff you are talking about. And I would imagine the vast majority of the audience, by default, of coming to the channel and watching this stuff and other people of a like mind who put out content like this. But clearly, there is a huge majority of people who are still watching Netflix, mainstream media, who haven't thought any more than the end of their nose and are paying heavy taxes, are feeling the stress of work, have got children to bring up, partners to satisfy, mortgages to pay, and so on, and may listen if somebody sent them this by accident and they were listening to it, this just sounds pie in the sky. How do you address those, because they're the people that I've been desperately trying to sort of contact and change mindsets with the range of different wonderful guests that I've had on the show. But how do we deal with those people? And how do we reach them as well?
Again, divine intervention. People, when we're born, we're souls. We sign a contract. We agree to come down. We agree to be a terrorist, or we agree to be a leader, and so on. So we've got our role here. Um, and there are people that sort of are asleep and they've agreed to be asleep, and perhaps they've got people who've deceased, and so those people decided to be on this world to teach people about things that can make you die earlier. um yeah, it's sort of coming back and having a look at the holistic view of things. Yeah, people will be they'll be down on their knees at some stage. But there'll be that spark of light. I don't really talk about sort of Bible and God and so on, because I see God as an energy rather than a person in the sky. But you will only get enough so that you can just about cope with. So you won't be pushed over the edge. So people will just have to think, right, this is no good. I'm going to have to default on my mortgage. Um, and then for some reason, because they've made that decision, they've cleared their mindset of it, things just flow. It's hard, it's very hard to explain it from my perspective, because my perspective is very different from a lot of other people. But I think yeah, free will and free choice, people will either come along with the journey or they won't.
Right. And do you think, on the whole, people are open to change?
I think more and more so, yes. If it's a change that's common sense, that's comfortable, that will have positive outcomes for people, then of course,
Yes.
who wouldn't want that change? Who wouldn't want their mortgages written off, and their car loans and their student
Well,
loans written off?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the way I used to be, and I haven't described it for a while actually, and you've reminded me. When talking about the people who have yet to sort of wake up or understand or become aware, in a way, to me, I think people are a bit, on the whole, people are a bit like water, and they'll find the line of least resistance. And if they see a bunch of people thriving, having a joyous life, they may come over and say, "Excuse me, how is it you're so happy and enjoying yourself, and we're not?" And you say, "Well, step this way, step into the light."
Exactly.
And then they'll come, their mates will come, and before you know it, you've got that community building. What can you go through some of the templates or some of the items in your template that make up the Kingdom of Britain, so people get a better understanding of it?
So we briefly touched on the decentralized project-based governance. So
Mm.
basically, where at the moment you've got pen pushers and so on, and 10 people doing the same job. So this way we have the core team, and they will, like, say, if the potholes need to be fixed in the road, that job will be raised on the system, and they're sort of like get a quote for it, get the contractor in, make sure it's sort of all in accordance with the natural laws. So the contractor's gonna, look after the wastage and so on. Um, and then sort of that process will be transparent, so people can see what's being done, where the money's going. And of course we need a pot to start with of this money. So
Mm.
basically we can see what is actually being paid by the people at the moment, work out what we don't want to pay, what we don't need to pay.
You mean through various taxes and things?
Exactly. So I call it a community trust fund. So, for example, at the moment, there is a company that actually pays the council, this is hearsay, of course, pays the council to empty our bins. Now, we pay for our empty our bins as well. And then this rubbish goes to incinerator, where they use the rubbish to create electricity, which we
Right.
pay for our electricity as well. So all these things like the speed restrictions and so on, as we say in common law, if there's no harm done, there's no there's no victim, it doesn't matter
Right.
as
So
long
I
as it's
suppose
sensible.
the councils would say, well, maybe they wouldn't say this actually, but I think people would say this, that the councils using speed cameras and things like that is just a revenue. Parking tickets and all of that is supposedly bringing money in, which of course for our benefit they would be then spending back in the community if there's anything left after they've funded wars. Of course, there is that slight little little thing to consider. Um, but that I would imagine that's what. So you're saying that. Sorry, I went a bit off track there. There would be a community fund. How would people? I mean, at the moment we have what they call the council tax, and if you don't pay it, you end up in a fake court,
Yeah.
and you go through the bulk hearing, and it's not real justice whatsoever at all, as previous guests have told me. How would you? What would be the approach then to say, look, in this kingdom, in this new way of doing things, how would you extract the money
Well,
needed for the pot?
people will see that it's actually going to good, proper things,
Mm,
obviously this is just an example because we don't know what schools are going to be like and so on. But for example, they can see that the money's going to school, but the idea is that there are essential services that everyone has.
mm.
Um, and so that will be like, for example, in Spain, they're only paying €300 a year for their council tax. So
Is that
if
because all the money does go to the council?
I don't know. I haven't looked
No.
into that. It's just
Right.
a bit of knowledge I have gleaned. Um, so if people can see transparency and then they can choose, oh well, I don't really want that. I'm going to go and empty my own bins and so on down the tip and so on. There'll be things that are essential and there'll be things that are additional. So yeah, I obviously it'll be down to each and every community. So I was thinking perhaps if every adult can pay into this, but there may be adults that can't. So then we'll find perhaps they can go and work in the library. And, that's where you can take strategies from other systems and so on. And it may be that the community works out what to do with those that can't afford it. They certainly won't penalize them, and because everyone's in everyone will be abundant anyway, but everyone's got their life journey that they're on and they need to be nurtured and looked after, hence the she-bear.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
find uh, the sticking point within them that's not allowing them to get on and have a fruitful life. um
People,
with so a couple of the things we also have are templates for like education, and when I say education it's totally different to the qualifications. I call it more empowerment, so it could be for all ages of all different topics. um you know uh so people can, if they're not that skilled and want to get a skill, they can go and learn a
acquire
skill.
one.
They could like work in a library. They could, there may be things where they can volunteer.
Because we used to have a lot of apprentices in the old days, didn't we?
Yes.
And that seems to have disappeared now, where skills. I think it was Tony Blair that tried to get everybody just to go to university and be, and there's nothing wrong with being academic as such, but you do need people who actually do things with their hands and create things and build things and invent things from experience, rather than just sit and read textbooks all day and come up with theories. I'm not knocking that if anybody wants to disagree. People are naturally well, I was going to say naturally that people have their own ideas and opinions.
Yes.
How does a community avoid the arguments and the well, I want it to be done this way, and I'm not going to join in if you don't type approach?
That's a
And
good
let me
one.
just qualify. Let me just qualify that because I was talking to somebody the other day in Wales, and they said they had a bunch of. They all had a new community came onto this land, and I can't remember how many there were. Let's say there was 40 of them, and it worked for about 6 months. But and they were all like friends and everything, and they got on. But after 6 months, they couldn't tolerate each other anymore, and the whole thing collapsed. And we're not used to that because we're so set in the old way of doing things that how do you get people who have had that upbringing to this whole new way of thinking and being a lot more giving and not so much taking?
I think that will be a natural consequence. They will learn the hard way. But there are many strategies for governance. There's democracy. Um, there's one I can't remember what it's called now, where you sort of like you bat it around and you point out the advantages and so on, and you still may get someone stuck with it. And then you know it's a case of each community will have to work out how they deal with this sticking point. There's a few processes out there, and they can sort of perhaps mix and match to see what suits them best. Again, it's down to perception and attitude of people, and hopefully, I haven't would we will be going into a world where those boundaries, why is that person being
Mm.
uh against that thing? Get them to actually air their problems, um, talk to them, be a friend of theirs. They might be just having a bad day, it may be just constructive criticism and so on. So, we're all individuals, and I think that's what we've got to think about at the end of the day.
And yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. We are, as I sort of mentioned in my shows at the moment, we seem to be in the clutch of corporations who seem to have railroaded their big companies everywhere. And we can all think of certain supermarkets that are in every town, or coffee shops, or hamburger shops that have sort of basically stolen the high street in the independent world, and sole traders, family businesses have been sort of ousted. How do we deal with these giants of industry that seem to have sewn up all of that and are squashing anybody who tries to set up their own independent, might be rival business, making hamburgers or cups of tea or whatever it might be, bicycles? How do we combat these so that we can support the what I would hope would be a more nurtured business rather than one that is very much profit driven for shareholders?
I'm sure there's a section in the natural law decrees, because sort of some of these big ones, are they causing harm with their foods that they're providing? I see a time where, we'll naturally go off meat and so on. Um, yeah, a lot of people, I've sort of like, I can't actually stomach meat. I can just about handle it to cook it for people, but things will change. Those big super duper things, I'm sure that if there's a lovely family run cafe and people can go in for a natter, perhaps have some incentives. It's not profit. They're the family perhaps are there because they love chatting to the people that are coming in, love to be of service. So people will feel that energy, feel that love and compassion, and then slowly move from the stark sort of corporate step off her lip, sort of out to make the money
Mm,
people and go to the small independents. And especially like if there's a community out in the countryside, you know, they haven't got those to start with. I'm helping someone with a village in Kenya, and they haven't got all that to start with. They've got a clean sheet to work from. So yes, it'll be interesting, but a lot of these corporations, we'll be able to seize their buildings and so on and change them over. So it's perhaps a learning center, or perhaps we can have it as accommodation and so on. So we're looking at repurposing anything that's not beneficial to humanity.
do you think though these corporations will be happy? They're not going to roll over, are they?
Well, when everything crashes and the money crashes and so on, they won't have a pot at all.
So is that what's going to happen then?
Well, we've always already got sort of councils going bankrupt. We've got banks closing and so on. And they say there's something that's going to come in that makes changes our money so it's gold backed, and a quantum system, so a financial system. So
And,
yeah,
and this isn't the CBDCs that they're want us to have programmed money.
no, no, no. It will sort of be programmed, but it will only be for, say, for example, if someone's going to buy arms or tanks and so on, then that will raise a red flag because that's against humanity.
Mm.
That's against the common law.
Right. Oh, okay. You mentioned earlier, and I know that some viewers would probably want me to pick this point up. You said you don't like meat, or what if you have a family-run butcher? Will people still be able to do that? I'm just thinking of the whole.
Just
Um,
because I don't like it doesn't mean that other
right.
people
No.
don't
Okay.
like it.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm just thinking suddenly,
Yeah.
because sometimes you talk to someone and say, "Oh yes, no, meat's going to be outlawed," and you go, "Oh, hang on,
But
who's
also, there will be things like replicators, but there'll be a sort of a beneficial thing, not like the
not
plastic
synthetic
meat,
burgers?"
yes. And also, we will treat our animals with more care and love. We won't sort of like herd them and put them on lorries and so on, because it will all be done in the community. So
Mm.
if old Flo wants to make a lovely roast, yeah, that chicken has like been nurtured, it's been looked after, it's been fed really good stuff, you know not naughty stuff.
Dodgy wheat and various,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. So, we're gonna come it sort of with the flow of things, everything will be to stop harm,
Mm.
and that will flow through. How long it will take, we don't know. But and it's always remembering that, yeah, free will, free choice.
Absolutely. What about crime, though? If there is crime going on, and the justice system, I mean, the justice system at the moment, particularly in the civil courts with the magistrates and things, certainly seems to be not up to what we would expect. Let me just put it as that. We've seen the council tax, and I've had people claiming that it's fraudulent and that it isn't, and people will have their opinions on that. Crime obviously will continue as it always has, but perhaps you're shaking your head there. Crime's not going to happen.
Um,
Explain that to.
Basically, if we're all abundant and we're going through to these, decentralized communities, we can have wise people within the community that can talk to this person who feels they need to do crime, find out what the problem is
Right.
behind everyone who's hurting, doing drugs, homeless, perhaps not homeless, perhaps they choose to be homeless. Um, there's always a story. is there any way we can help them? We need, well-being centers to look at this holistically.
Mm.
Just because there's a yob down the road, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kick your bin over," or blah, blah. What's going on underneath that? Perhaps he was mistreated as a young person. Perhaps um, he's a bit
But you
shy.
have there's two things I want to pick up there. The first one is not everybody is necessarily a yob or dysfunctional. You get crimes of passion where they see red and perhaps they've, let's say take the extreme, they've murdered a partner, not because they intended to, but they just got so angry for whatever reason. And a crime happens, a victim is hurt, whether they're dead or whether they're just maimed or run over, but things will happen. You'd still have to deal with those. And then the other one I'll come back to in a second.
So what's behind that crime of passion? How did it get that bad that fast? You
Yes.
know, we're now coming into an age where people that don't resonate with you are just falling away. You sort of like someone rings up, oh, it's them again, they drain me, and so on. So it will be that some people will, there's probably loads of divorces going on with the lockdowns we have. If it doesn't make it, then it breaks it.
Mm.
So again, I think that if we get back to community, we get to a stage where people can talk, people become more aware of what's in their heart, what they really truly want. They may find that, oh, well, sorry, I don't want to, I feel I've outgrown you, my dear, and sort of go off. So, yeah, there may be. That will be crimes of passion, but that will be up to the community. As they say, it takes one village to raise a child. Uh,
Mm.
we're all children at heart.
So would you have trial by jury
Yes,
in
trial
in
by
yeah,
jury, do the common law. What's it, 12
12
individuals.
yeah. The other thing I wanted to pick up then was you mentioned if we're all abundant. What do you mean by that?
Basically, I've hit on the fact that we're going over to gold-backed currency. Um, as some of your guests have said, our birth certificates are sort of like stocks and shares that have been, traded on by those above. Um, and I honestly believe with something that's called GESARA, which I recommend people have a look at, GESARA, um, we will have our debts forgiven because mortgages are um, unlawful. There's a lot of things that are unlawful because the government hasn't been consented to by the governed. Of course, this is all going to fail eventually.
So by abundant, do you mean everybody will have enough money?
Yes.
And where will that? I mean, I've paid off my mortgage, so I won't get it paid. Will I get that paid back to me then?
I don't know. I can't say
All right.
individual things. I've just sort of like have an overview of Gasara, and one of the things is to, people are let off their debt, and they get their value of their birth certificate back.
Right. Okay. So if so, I mean, what I've heard things similar on the birth certificate, and we're all supposed to be worth millions or billions of
Definitely.
pounds or dollars, whatever you want to put it in, or in gold, whatever. But if everybody's got money, then who's going to go to work and make something?
Um, those that are passionate about doing that.
Right.
What do we need? Our five fundamental human rights need to be met. So we need quality water, we need quality nutritious food, we need a shelter, we need empowerment or knowledge, learning, and we need some kind of health system. That's all we need.
So somebody somewhere who's now abundant has got to take the effluent from people's houses, clean it up, and send it back again. And they may say, I don't want to be dealing with this smelly stuff.
That's
And
correct. So we'll find other ways and means, being a visionary, and there are many visionaries out there, we will envision a new way of doing it. In when we go camping, there's what's it, tree bogs, where you just throw the sawdust down, it goes back to the earth. It's used for the fertilizer on the ground. So, there's always an alternative way around it. We just perhaps take a step back, or there may be technology that deals with that for us. Who knows?
who knows? No, I mean, I'm trying to think of questions that the audience watching this will go, oh well, if I've got all this money and I'm working for a water treatment company, I don't want to be doing it. But as you say, these compositing toilets exist, but some people may say, well, but if I've got all this money, I want a gold-plated toilet. I don't want one where you shove sawdust down. I mean, everybody is in a different mindset
Yes.
about the things they want. But I do tend to agree overall with what you're saying. Is in my opinion, we need to get back to the actual things that are important and those things that make us happy, not necessarily following what we think makes us happy, which might be trinkets,
Yes.
which continually go wrong, and then we have to upgrade these damn trinkets,
Yes.
which is useless. Whereas it's much more fun in my world to see the sunrise and the sunset. If I can use an analogy that's probably overused, but a lot of the good things in life are free.
Exactly. Definitely. I would like to be, on a bit of land with a lake in the middle, building my own log cabin and so on. I don't want to be tied to a computer either, but, it's one of my passions at the moment. So I've got to like balance. Yeah. Okay.
Balance your life.
Yeah. And, let's hope with new technology, we're just like, I'm going to clone myself a few times and then the clones can do the work and I'll just sit and frolic in the lake and so on. That's a
We
joke, by the way.
Well, we'd all like to frolic. Frolic?
Frolic.
I don't think that's a word, is it? I'm good at. I think I need to bring out a whole new dictionary for Vobisms. We're coming to the end of the sort of allotted hour. I don't like to go too much, but let me ask you this then to finish off with. You've spoken about communities, and it sounds very rosy and what have you, and I imagine a lot of people will be absolutely in tune with what you're saying. Those that aren't, that don't want this, that are quite happy with this old system, what happens to them?
Free will, free choice. Who knows?
Who
Yeah,
knows?
it's their life, it's their path.
Right. So they could build a community under whatever kind of governance they want to choose effectively,
Yeah,
as long as they don't infringe anybody else.
exactly.
So where can people find out more about? I mean, I mentioned the website, the Kingdom of the Kingdom of Britain, and how can and do you are you looking for people to get involved and become what would you call them, communicators of what you do?
Yes, we're looking for, we have sort of about 10 areas. We have about eight or so people. We have a regular bi-monthly meeting. So yes, we are looking for like-minded people to come on board, spread the word. There may be people that have got a specific passion in mind, so they could come along as an expert in their field. Um, it's basically we need to be able to network and connect, and it's all about networking and connecting. So making sure when people need when things need to be, projects need to be sorted, then there's someone there and an expert there that we can pull on their information and they can help give some consultancy.
I'm just showing some extracts from your very easy to read, very clear. It's nice to see a nice, clear, simple website so that
Yes.
people can find out, because so many websites can be very cluttered and it's difficult to see stuff, which looks absolutely great here. So people can go and check that out, find out all about you, and presumably there's contact on there
Yes,
to get in touch.
there's a lovely little buttons at the bottom. You've got email, Facebook, Telegram, or they can join the newsletter. Um, that's not all that busy at the moment, but I'm sure it will be moving forward. So yes, if people want to contact me, then please email me, which is the best way, and I will get back to you as soon as humanly possible. I don't bite. I'm here.
Even though you're a bear.
Even though I'm a bear, I might sniff or growl a bit, but that's it. Um, yeah, so people either they're like Marmite, they either love you or hate you. So
Absolutely. Well, Shebear, it's been an absolute delight talking to you about the Kingdom of England. We've exchanged a few emails over the last month or so, and it's been fascinating to read your vision. And I think it will be shared by a lot of people. At least I hope so, because there's so many good things in it. And as we I am a firm believer that we are transitioning from this old world to a new world, which is a lot more to do with caring, nurturing, abundance, and all the other good things that you've said. And it is really just that question of how we do it in the best and easiest way, and help people who might be a bit confused, because they may not have thought of any of this as they've watched mainstream media and have been concentrating on the ills of the world, whereas people like yourself have been concentrating on the beauty of where we're going.
yes, well, I blame you, Richard,
Oh,
totally with your Biggleswick. That was the main catalyst for me to put all this information up on the website with the team and stick my neck above the parapet. So there we go. Thank you.
well, it's my pleasure. I'm glad Biggleswick. I must do some more videos on Biggleswick and where I, my philosophy on that. But will you come back in another 6 months or something and tell us how it's going? And I think this year is going to be a pretty iconic year for
Mm.
change, and it will be interesting to see how you get on.
Definitely, definitely. I know sort of like we've got some education projects going already down in Uganda. Um, so, from those projects there, we can learn from them and we can fine tune and tweak and so on. So it's not written in stone. It is a template and it's there for individuals to decide upon or not, as the case may be.
Fantastic. Well, Shebear, lovely to talk to you. Thanks for sharing the vision. Do check out kingdomofbritain.co.uk. I will put the link. Is it The Kingdom of Britain or Kingdom of Britain?
The kingdom.
thekingdomofbritain.co.uk. There we go. But I'll put it in the link to make it very easy for people. And thank you so much. And of course, I'll be back with more monologues and wonderful guests, which is fantastic. But in the meantime, Shebear, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. It's always interesting to see how people are looking to the future, especially with positive ideas, instead of so many YouTube channels have got so much negativity on it. So it's always good to have an optimistic viewpoint. So anyway, from Shebear and myself, thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.